Hi everyone, it's Nicole Williams, your host for Bold and Blissful Woman, how to connect with your feminine essence to create the extraordinary life and love you desire. Today we have a very great expert on how to handle stress, how to have a life of more joy, more ease, so you can be more successful. Her name is Nicole Liloia, and I'm very excited to have her here. She's a licensed therapist, coach. She has been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post, and many other media that is there to support you basically in doing what you want, and you can create a life that you desire with more ease and more flow. I'm super excited to have you here. Welcome. Would you like to share with us today, like some about you? What is it that you do? Like, and what are you excited about for like your career right now? What are you doing?
So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I am like you said, a therapist and coach. I have a small private practice counseling women who are stressed out, anxious, depressed. And I also have a coaching business helping women who are ready to make money doing work they love, who are ready to sort of escape the normal, everyday 9 to 5 way society tells you you're going to be successful. They're ready to kind of step outside their comfort zone and figure out new ways of making money and feeling happy and excited in the mornings and doing work that they love and really feel passionate about.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm really passionate about that too. So I think that the best question for me to start with would be, why is self-care important before you reach a certain level of success? Sometimes I see or I hear women saying, I'll take care of myself, or I'll implement this, or I get this level of support after I am successful. Like, is this true, or why is it important for us to actually do it in a different way?
So self-care is important at all times of your life. I think that a lot of times we think it'll be easier to make more time for it when we hit a certain level, or, make more money, or, have a different job, have a better support system. So we're always like one day. But the truth is, like, it's really actually hard to get those things without a good self-care routine in place. To have the best, you really need to be at your best. And self-care helps you to be at your best right now. And it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to take up tons of time. It really is about a mindset that is about, putting yourself first and loving yourself.
I love that. Could you talk a bit about putting yourself first? I mean, I've seen it happen with clients who come to me and tell me, like, I'm doing everything at work. I'm getting the money that I desire, but I just feel like my energy is all over the place. And I see them, responding to other people's requests all the time, but they have like zero time for themselves, and they don't know how to say it now, or they have trouble saying that.
Yeah. So I think what happens a lot of times is that, it's really about doing it right now, and saying, what do I really want in life? What are my core values? What is important to me? And to make that happen, it really is about taking care of yourself, because when you're stressed out, when you're overwhelmed, when you're disconnected, that's what happens as a result of stress. You really can't enjoy what you have. So that's why a lot of women struggle to feel successful. They're in autopilot mode, and they're constantly reaching for more, more, bigger, better. But the truth is, it's really about pausing and taking in what you do have and changing your routines and habits now to prioritize your own care, so that you really can enjoy what you have, and then, move on for more if you need it or want it. But a lot of times we're just kind of blindly rushing to the next level without even pausing to consider if it's really, good for us or important to us.
I think that's beautiful. And in your own definition, what is self-care? Because self-care is very broad. Could you even mention a few things that our audience might find surprises that you consider as self-care?
Sure. So self-care is definitely, making sure that you're providing for yourself, that you're loving yourself, that you like yourself, that, that you're doing things for yourself, without feeling stressed and overwhelmed and tired all the time, without waiting to that place where it's a necessity, where it's constant for you. So you're constantly doing these things. And yes, sometimes you may get off track, but making sure you getting back on track without, ending up with a high level of stress or any anxiety or anything like that. So that's self-care, and you can do that many ways. And a lot of it is about creating intention. So, I think that a lot of times we do things that are self-care activities, but the truth is we are not doing them with the intention to care for ourselves and to relax and enjoy it. We're doing it because we think we have to, or it's trendy or something like that. And some examples of that might be like getting a manicure or pedicure. Most of us do that regularly now. But we don't actually consider it self-care. It's become like another task on our to-do list where we feel crappy if it doesn't happen. And, I can't tell you how many times I've been at the nail place and I'm like, I'm there and women are on their phone the entire time, texting their friends, doing work, they're getting phone calls. They're not in the moment enjoying like the process of being taken care of, they're not enjoying that experience. So it is very important, even with things like that you're already doing, maybe you go to the gym, but your purpose in going to the gym or working out is about losing weight. It's not about feeling your best, so you get kind of set up, like caught up in these goals, looking better, looking better, getting fitter, but not feeling really good about yourself. So that's really what, self-care is about: being present, enjoying it, and having it as a way to recharge, and revive yourself. Another thing that we often do for self-care is watch TV. We're stressed and we're like, I want to watch TV, but we do it as a way to disconnect. We binge on Netflix. And that's not good either. So it's really important to make sure that you're doing these things with intention. If you're going to watch a TV show, choose a 30-minute, 1 hour TV show as a break and sit there and enjoy it. Don't be on your computer at the same time. Don't be multitasking. Be present and make sure you have a goal, which is to rest, to laugh, to get caught up in the drama of the TV show and really like choose why you're doing this.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I'm noticing a pattern. You're talking about being present. And as this summit is about feminine energy, and I truly believe that feminine energy is all about just being present, allowing yourself to feel and experiencing whatever is going on for you, right? I have noticed that sometimes what we do is that we are already feeling disconnected, but then we use all those things, like you said, TV, or getting the manicure, pedicure, and all that stuff to disconnect even further. So can you talk about the importance of being present and how that, and happiness, how that correlates in having more success?
Mm-hmm. So being present is really important. Being present is a form of mindfulness, which is being present, enjoying the present moment, not judging yourself, just being aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations, what's actually going on in that moment, and not being caught up in that spiral of thought, where you're doing something, you're driving to work and you're thinking about your to-do list. You're taking a shower and you're sort of reviewing that fight you had with your partner. That's not mindfulness. Mindfulness is being in the present moment without judgment. So that is very important because that actually allows us to experience our feelings as they happen. And it allows us to actually experience happy moments, enjoyable moments. And it actually even allows us to, experience our not so great feelings, anger, sadness, frustration. And that's really important too, because when we try to avoid those feelings, they just pile up and we get numb. And we numb ourselves from happy feelings as well. And that's sort of like what happens. And that's why we don't feel successful or good about our success, is because we just sort of numbed ourselves. We've worked so hard. We've worn ourselves out. We can't connect with how we feel. So, I think in order to really feel enjoyment, feel happiness, we have to definitely check in with ourselves regularly and be present and say, what's going on for me right now? Why am I doing this? What do I feel when I do this? And I think that helps us to actually be successful now, because it allows us to connect with our happy feelings, choose to do what makes us feel happy, not just kind of do everything because we think we're supposed to be doing it. And then, enjoy success now, and not necessarily even become more successful, but obviously, feel more successful, feel success, because we are in control of our lives, and we forget that sometimes.
Right. So, in order for us to feel success now, what does that look like in details? Does it mean celebrating the little things, or are there any other specific tips that you have on this? Like, how can you start feeling successful now instead of like beating yourself up, or, yeah.
Right. So I think we get stuck in the gap of, being of where we want to be, and thinking about our next goal, like you brought up initially when we first talked, like kind of always thinking about what's going to happen next, So I think that, what happens is there's this gap in between there. It's like, here we are, and that's where we want to be. And we kind of just feel miserable, instead of kind of saying like, okay, look what I've done so far. Look what I have right now. It's sort of like, oh God, there's all these steps we have to take still. But by being able to check in and really process, what you have done so far regularly, by being able to really, appreciate the relationships you have, the connections you've built up, you really do feel more in charge of your life, and you feel more in control. And I think that helps us feel more successful.
Right. I love that. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is sometimes I've noticed that we can get kind of like in a comfort zone of being used of things being difficult or being an overwhelm. That used to be my case, right? When I was growing up, I remember that everybody would call me Nicole's stress, right? Like, that's something that one of the professors in college came up with, and like everybody resonated with him, and I had no idea why they were calling me this way. But my point is that there was a pattern in me that just like liked to have all these sort of stuff to do, and it was my area of comfort. Like, I didn't know how to break free from that. So can you talk a little bit about how can you break free from that comfort zone when you're just so used to having a lot of things that can cause you overwhelm, or that you're a lot used to dealing with a lot of things in your life?
Sure. So I think that what happens is that, we sort of get stuck feeling stressed or overwhelmed, but, it's familiar to us. So that's our comfort zone. So even though we're not really comfortable, because we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, we stay comfortable in that position. We don't try to change it because we're not sure what's outside of it. It's what we're used to. It's what we know. We don't actually want to try to like change it. And that's not a good way to live. So I think that it is very, very important to sort of, push yourself out of that comfort zone, to get being uncomfortable, to get comfortable kind of being a little bit scared, to know that when you're doing that, you're going to be able to change things.
Right. I love that. And you mentioned that sometimes it can be like a little bit scary. What tools do you recommend for a woman to make the process less scarier, or to stay accountable or stay committed to that process of moving past her comfort zone?
Yeah, I recommend definitely creating a support system, finding women, like finding other women, or, even guy friends who are also looking to change their lives, improve, and who you constantly see have that self-awareness of their limits and of making sure to push themselves past it. We all have friends, but sometimes we get into very bad habits with friends where we stay stuck and we go out and we just kind of complain about our lives, complain about what's not working. You really want to find those people. You want to get, in touch with those people who are also looking to constantly kind of push themselves forward and change the status quo. And I think really building up a support system is good for that, talking about this regularly, meeting regularly. And I think also, definitely investing in a mastermind,
definitely investing in your own self-improvement by either hiring a coach, going to a therapist, going to retreats, signing up for courses that are about personal development. It's hard to figure this stuff out on your own. And there's really no reason to when there's so many opportunities to get help with this, on any price level. And I think there's also something to be said for spending this money on yourself and investing in your self-improvement. I think that money is important. And I think that when there's a sort of financial investment in ourselves, we follow through more easily.
I love that. Do you have anything to say or any words of encouragement for women who are not used to investing in their self-development or in their self-care this way? I know that sometimes making that investment for the first time can be kind of scary. I mean, it was for me, and I know it's been for many women, but I know that's sort of like one of the best investments that you can do for yourself in your life. But have you ever helped women go through that process, or how do you encourage them to go take that step?
Yes, absolutely. I think one, it's really about knowing it's not going to feel comfortable, because when you're pushing yourself, and that's, once again, get comfortable being uncomfortable. If it's a little scary, that's a good thing, because you're going to learn something new. You're going to have an experience, and sometimes it always doesn't work out, and that's okay. You'll still learn something from it. Investment in yourself is never a waste, even if it doesn't always work out 100%, because you learn other things. You learn things you don't like. I think that, we all need to believe in ourselves. And I think by putting sometimes a price on it, it does, even just starting out small with a course or a book or something like that, splurging on yourself that way. Looking over what expenses you have. Is there anything that's not really beneficial for you to pay for anymore? So you can choose that different investment.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So I know that sometimes when we are starting to take care of ourselves fully and put ourselves first, that means setting boundaries in terms of stopping the patterns that we have where we would accept everything from everyone, or we wouldn't have time for ourselves. So do you have any recommendations or tips for women who are starting to place boundaries, who are in a place right now that are starting to say no to certain things that they would have said before, and how to avoid conflict, right? I mean, for me personally, I had a self-confidence issue regarding saying no in those situations, and I kind of had a pattern of always saying yes to people, even if it meant draining my energy. So I had to put myself in a place of saying no first. How can you start feeling good with saying no and without causing any conflict?
Yeah, I think the thing with that is to one know, it's gonna be painful saying no sometimes until you actually see the benefits, the results, that initial piece, where you're sort of like, is this a good idea or is this not a good idea? Sometimes you just have to make the jump for it. You have to try out saying no, and you'll see you survive it. I think that we live in this place in our heads, of imagining what we're missing out on and how people are going to view us for saying no. And I think, that's where you really have to be mindful and stay in your own space. Don't get in other people's heads. People are more understanding than we give them credit for. A lot of times they're not going to hate us and say no to things. I think just saying let me try it out a couple times and see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back. You know what I mean? Go back to it, saying yes to more things. But I think for sure, maybe even just putting a little timetable on it. For the next week, I'm not going to take any extra things on, and seeing how it works out.
I love that. Personally speaking, I think that, or from what I've noticed, is that when you respect yourself more, to even say no when your energy is not aligned with it, people respect you more. Even on personal relationships, work-wise, etc. So in terms of saying no and setting boundaries, can we talk about when women are doing this at work? Because I know that sometimes it can be a little bit different. How do you recommend for a woman to set boundaries at work that are not in alignment with her self-care practices or keeping her energy at high levels.
So how can they set boundaries at work in terms of their workload?
Yes.
So I think at work, one, it's, I think it's definitely tougher at work because it depends on your role, in the organization. But are you doing everything you should be doing? Are you doing your job to the best of your ability? It's like, if you can truly like look that over, and say that and be honest with yourself about it, like that's good. Check in with that first. Then I think check into, where are you feeling most drained at work? Is it that you're staying late just because you feel you have to? Is it that maybe your time management isn't the best because you're, texting your friends or on Facebook during the day? And be honest about that, with yourself. Look at where your energy leaks are throughout the day. Are you actually, ever taking breaks? It's actually better to take structured breaks and get more work done, during the work times, than to not take breaks and to like kind of work through the day, like kind of half energy. So I think it's really about being willing to be honest and evaluate yourself. And it's not about being critical or picking at yourself or beating yourself up if you're not doing something 100%, but saying, okay, like this really isn't working for me, and that's like, I don't feel good when I sit at my desk and work through my lunch, and I'm going to take a lunch or I'm going to take a half-hour lunch. I'm going to get away from my desk. And I don't care that other people are sitting through doesn't mean, that their work's better, and I think like staying in your own space mentally.
Yeah.
So making sure you're not making assumptions about what your boss thinks about you or your coworkers think about you. Finding a mentor, whether it's your boss or someone else at work, finding a mentor, a leader whose work style do you admire and why? Whose personality, like who do you feel is a very good person? Maybe you think somebody, is a great worker, but if you don't respect their personality, is that who you want to model? So looking over all those kind of things and really figuring out, how can I be my best at work? And, saying yes to everything is not being your best.
Oh, I think that's a beautiful point. So it's about basically communicating yourself better and noticing your time management skills. So do you have any other tips on time management? That's something that I know a lot of women could benefit from, right? Instead of what's a healthier way of handling multitasking when you notice that you're trying to do several things at the same time?
Right. So multitasking actually doesn't work well. We think it does. It doesn't. It's actually better to set a timer and work on something for a short amount of time. There's something called the Pomodoro technique where you work for like 25 minutes on one task only and then take a 5-minute break and then 25 minutes on another task. So I really recommend that even if you just start out with 10, 15 minutes on one task. Don't have 8 million tabs open on your computer. Don't be working on 5 different projects at once and switching back and forth. Really try to work straight through for a certain amount of time on one project or, aspect of the project at a time and see how that goes. And then take little breaks in between for the extra stuff like checking your email and checking your phone and things like that.
Yes, I really appreciate that. In your opinion, what are the main 3 points that cause more overwhelm for a woman when she is deciding to start her business, and how can she start to lower that?
So I think the 3 main areas that cause overwhelm for women starting their business is, 1, comparison. They compare themselves to people who have been in business for multiple years. When you're starting out, you cannot compare yourself to people who have been in business for 3, 4, 5, even 1 year, because they're at a very, very different resources and tools and different knowledge that you don't have yet. So that doesn't make them better or worse than you. You're just not in the same place. So I think that we shouldn't compare ourselves to people totally in a different trajectory, because that sets up unrealistic expectations for ourselves that we should have skills that we just really shouldn't have yet because we haven't been able to develop them yet. So I think one, not comparing. I think two, the other thing is really choosing carefully what to focus on and giving yourself enough time for it. Overestimate the time that it will take to complete something. Don't underestimate. I've noticed that most tasks that I think are going to take a certain time take 3 times that. So, and then I used to feel miserable that I hadn't accomplished it. But the truth is, things just take longer than we realize sometimes. So don't think, writing a blog is going to take 15 minutes. Give yourself a good hour for it. And then if it takes less, celebrate that, but don't, give yourself ridiculous timetables and, don't give yourself unrealistic goals. And then the third, I would say, is avoiding perfection, starting before you're ready. There's no such thing as perfect. And I'm sure that anybody that you actually believe is perfect, you probably think a lot of not nice thoughts about that because we don't really like perfect people. So why do we strive so hard to be perfect? Nothing's perfect. Just start before you're ready. You got to get out there. You only learn from experience. So many of my clients struggle because they're not ready to talk to clients, but they can't develop services unless they talk to potential clients and set up calls. So, if you are really serious about running a business, you need to do those tasks that you don't feel ready to do. Yeah, you need to just try them out and experiment. And that's how you get better at them. Don't just think about them.
I love that. So you mentioned something about your clients when they're starting their businesses and they need to offer their services. How, when you're starting your business, how do you make sure that you're charging a price that's taking into consideration your self-care or putting yourself first, right? How do you ensure that it's a good price for the client but also a good price for you so that supports you?
So I think that one, you want to choose a price that, one, feels comfortable to you, that you can say confidently. If you can't say it confidently, it should scare you a little bit. You should push yourself, obviously, because a lot of times if we undercharge, we end up resenting the client and we don't give them our best work. So we want to make sure that we do work our butts off for our clients and give them our best services, and charging a price that scares us a little bit is good. You don't want it to scare us too much because we're never going to be able to say it confidently then, and people won't hire us. And we won't feel comfortable doing the work. But I think, I think pricing, it is a bit of just playing around. So, you have to start somewhere for your first few clients, and it's okay to price it a little lower to get that experience to feel comfortable. And then change it after 5 clients. I think people get very caught up in prices, but they can easily be changed. And it's okay to do that.
Right. I love that. And when you're having that conversation of when you're changing your prices, right? Mm-hmm. Or you were undercharging a client to the point that you've started to resent the process because you feel like you're not receiving much in exchange. Are there any tips that you have to have that talk so you don't feel nervous around the situation or what you might say?
Yeah, so if you sign on a client for a specific price for a package, obviously then their price should stay that. You don't have to change that in the middle of a contract or anything. So that's nothing to worry about. But if you have a client that, you want to sign on with you again, and you have, changed your prices because maybe your schedule is filled up, or you've realized that, that you're really working a lot harder, putting a lot more time in than you thought you would. I think it's totally okay to say, here's the deal, my prices are this now, and this is because of this value that I provide you. And you really want to stick to the value and the results that they're going to be getting by investing in you. I think that, once again, don't get in their heads about the story of your price. I think we get scared and we make up stuff. We just imagine the worst case scenarios all the time. And that's not good. So just make sure that you are being upfront and honest about, have a couple of reasons for why your prices are changing, why they're valued at what they are valued, but there's no reason to get into a full story about it. If somebody's really going to question you or or question the prices that you're charging, then maybe they're not the best fit for you. And sometimes you just have to let that go.
Right. So one of the things that you were mentioning kind of reminded me of wanting to get all tied up over small stuff, right? Wanting to get stressed out on small stuff. How do you recommend women to let that go and when to recognize when something is small stuff versus something that is actually requiring of your attention for you to fully focus and move forward?
Right. So, small stuff is probably stuff that's never actually showed up as a problem or played out for you the way you often imagine it will. It's something that really, you have to say to yourself, how, if this really happens, how is this really seriously going to affect my life or my lifestyle? And if it's really not a big deal, then you don't want to be overthinking it. But if it's something bigger, if it's something you have experienced or you do know will give you a problem, create a couple of, play it out, create a plan to deal with it. But, don't spend too much time, because the truth is the majority of times is that we spend more time stressing out about stuff, planning stuff. And then when you actually do it, it's not a big deal. And you wasted more time thinking about it. Sometimes you just have to put it out there, do it, put out the situation with the client, have that conversation and see what happens. And a lot of times it's really not as bad as we thought.
Right. I love that. And also releasing the client in the sense that if it's not meant to be or for any other reason, let them go, because we fully believe in abundance, right? In supporting the people that are in alignment with us. So I think that's really key.
And that's stuff, right? And letting them have their space to deal with their stuff too.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly with that. What are your 3 main advices or tips for women to create with more flow and ease instead of overwhelm or stress?
Right. So don't stay in autopilot. Don't stay in autopilot, which is when you're doing things just because they're habits. They're not working for you, but you just do them because they come automatically. So be mindful each day. Just take time to pause, set up reminders on your phone, because it doesn't come naturally at first. Just set up a little timer on your phone, and when the timer goes off, at certain times, just check in with yourself and how do I feel and what am I doing? Where am I? Where am I in terms of what I'm supposed to be doing right now? So I think that's really important, is practice mindfulness. I think the second thing is, support and connection. Make sure that you're interacting with others, that you have a good support system. So many women entrepreneurs are working on their own at their homes nowadays. They don't, they're not talking to other people, and you really can get in your head a lot and be really unrealistically hard on yourself. So it is definitely important for you to actually check in and say to yourself, what is really going on here, saying to other people, having conversations with other people, and just having that support system of, letting people know what you're working on and where you're at with things. And then I think the third one is, like we've been talking about, do things that make you uncomfortable. Don't stay status quo. Don't do things just because you think you're supposed to. Do the things that scare you, because those are going to have the biggest changes for you, the biggest, most positive results.
Yeah, definitely. And okay, so the question that I have for you right now is, when you've spent so much time feeling disconnected or being in autopilot, and maybe you're doing something that you don't even love, do you have any recommendation for a woman to connect with what that may be, of what she may actually love doing? How do you start going there? Because sometimes, for me personally, I just was drawing a blank, and I've seen that with a lot of the clients at first. Is there anything that can help them spark a certain level of movement towards what they do want to be doing right now?
Right. So I think get out and move your body and do something that's fun to you. Take a vacation. Go to a yoga class. Plan a happy hour with friends. Just get out of that day-to-day vibe. Switch things up in your schedule and take yourself out of the everyday, grind or, autopilot mode. And I think, like I said, just start out small, because when we try to do big changes, we overwhelm ourselves and we freeze. So just start out, putting in small things, doing small things, doing something differently, driving a different way to work, something that makes you, not be so doing the same thing every day.
I love that. Yes, definitely. And you kind of read my mind. I was gonna ask you about when we want to try, like, okay, so we have already figured out what we want to do. Maybe we're working a 9 to 5 that we're not really connected with, and we want to do that jump. We want to do that leap towards what we actually want. Maybe it is creating a coaching business. Maybe it is creating a service-based business, art, whatever. The thing is that we want to make that leap right now, and that can cause us overwhelm or more stress. So what's one easy way for us to start doing that transition instead of trying to do it all at the same time and just causing more overwhelm?
Right. So I think, talk to potential customers and clients, whether it's like a product or a service, put out the idea out there and say, hey, would anyone be interested in this? Kind of, I like to work with this. Does this fit your description? Can I ask you some questions? And talk to people. Because I think talking to people scares us the most, but it does get us the biggest results because we see if there's a need out there for what we're doing. And we also, just get feedback on our ideas and get excited, and we see what needs to be shifted. And before we start spending a lot of time, money, or energy on something that's not really going to work, the initial presentation, it's good to just get out there and talk to people about it and say, hey, I have this idea.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Nicole, I really wanted to thank you for your time in this interview. I loved every single one of the tips that you provided, because it was just all about being mindful, being present, enjoying, being happy in the process. And I think that's really key. It's essential. I honestly do think that it's essential. So your feedback was really, really appreciated. I want to thank you once again. And I know that you have a gift for our viewers right now. So if you could describe it a little bit and what's in it for them.
Yeah, it's a self-care cheat sheet that I created that honestly hundreds of people have already downloaded, which is pretty amazing. But, I created this self-care sheet. I think that when we are on autopilot, we get so frozen in thinking about what can we do, and everything feels so hard, So I just wanted to break that down for you, and I wanted to give you some quick, easy tips on starting with your self-care. And I think really doing the self-care and connecting to yourself will help you realize what you should be doing in your life and how to feel successful.
Thank you so much. So everyone, this was our interview for today. If you desire Nicole's self-care cheat sheet, you can take it on the link below, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you so much.